Welcome back, philosophers. Let's talk about chapters 9, 10, and the appendix as we close out Mesle's text. So we'll begin with chapter 9, creativity, freedom, and God. In process philosophy, creativity is not just something we do, it is the very condition that makes reality possible. Whitehead doesn't treat creativity as a mystical force or something like that, but as the most basic principle, more basic than matter, energy, or even God. Everything actual arises through creativity. This means that at the heart of existence is not stability, but becoming, which we've talked quite a bit about in this course. Each actual entity, whether it's a particle, a tree, or a person, becomes what it is through an act of self-creation. This becoming isn't random. It's guided by what Whitehead calls the initial aim, which is the best possible outcome for that situation offered by God. Whitehead definitely believes in God, so there's a lot of philosophy of religion in studying Alfred North Whitehead. But the actual entity still has to choose. That choice is its subjective aim. So we have initial aim and subjective aim. And this is where freedom enters the picture. Freedom, for Whitehead, is real. It's a real thing. It's not an illusion. It's built into the structure, the very structure of existence. Even the smallest occasions of experience, all the way down to the quantum level, contribute some element of decision. The world, for Whitehead, is not a deterministic machine. It's an open-ended process of becoming. In this model, God doesn't control or override. God offers possibilities. God invites. God lures. This is what process theology calls persuasive power. God is relational, not domineering. And here's the remarkable claim. God is affected by the world. God feels everything. God suffers with us. Whitehead calls this the consequent nature of God. So, instead of imagining God as removed and unchanging, Whitehead invites us to see the divine as deeply involved, responding moment by moment, weaving our joys and sorrows into a larger story. It's a picture of God as the fellow sufferer who understands, which is an important concept for Whitehead. Now, let's turn to chapter 10, which is looking ahead. So this chapter doesn't introduce any new technical terminology. Instead, it opens up the horizon. So Mesle shows us how process-relational thinking is growing across the world. It's not just in philosophy departments, which is great. It's being picked up in theology, education, economics, ecology, and even interfaith dialogue, which I think is amazing. Especially in places like China and India, where relational worldviews are part of a long-standing tradition. And this makes a lot of sense. Process philosophy resonates with Eastern ideas of interdependence, impermanence, and flow. It challenges the Western obsession with substances and isolation and invites us to see the world as a network of relationships always in motion. Mesle makes one thing clear. Process philosophy is not a utopia. It's not a utopia. It does not promise easy answers, for sure. But it gives us a new way of imagining ethics and society, not as a system of rules imposed from above, but as a living web of mutual influence. It asks us to think relationally. What would politics look like if it prioritized care over control? What would religion look like if it focused more on participation than purity? In a time of climate crisis, rising authoritarianism, and social division, process thought offers a quiet but powerful counter-narrative, which is pretty cool. It says we are not isolated. We are co-creators, and we are responsible for the world we are helping to shape. At the very end, Mesle quotes the Bhagavad Gita. The highest among us are those who burn with the bliss and suffer the sorrow of all creatures. That, he says, is the kind of person process thought calls us to become. Now, finally, let's tackle the appendix where some crazy, Whiteheadian technical language appears. This part dives into the harder terminology of Whitehead's metaphysics, but don't be intimidated. You know what metaphysics is, and you'll be able to comprehend this terminology the more you think about it, the more you think about the reading that we've done, those kind of things. These terms are challenging, yes, but they are also deeply clarifying once we get the hang of them. Let's start with the core unit of reality, what Whitehead calls the actual entity or actual occasion. This isn't a substance, it's a moment of becoming. Think of it as a drop of experience. Each actual entity comes into being through a process called concrescence, which is the gathering and integrating of all all the past influences and present possibilities into a concrete reality. Once it finishes its becoming, it perishes, but its influence echoes through future moments. So concrescence. Now, how does an actual entity relate to what came before it? Through a process called prehension. Prehension means feeling or taking in. An entity prehends the past both physically and conceptually, so with your body and your mind. This includes positive prehensions, which it accepts and uses, and negative prehensions, which it filters out. But even what it rejects leaves a trace. So the past is not simply absorbed, it's felt, interpreted, and shaped. Another key concept is eternal objects. These are possibilities. They're like colors, forms, patterns, emotions, ideals. They're not actual themselves, but they can be actualized by an entity. An experience of joy, for example, might integrate certain eternal objects like rhythm, warmth, or generosity. This is how novelty and value enter into the world. Now, there's also this idea of societies. A society is a group of actual entities that maintain continuity. So this is an important term. A cell, a tree, a mind, all these are societies. What makes them endure is the shared pattern across moments. And that means identity itself is a process, not a substance. You are not the same person you were 5 years ago. You are a continuity of becoming. And finally, Whitehead speaks of the subject-superject. This is what an actual entity becomes after it finishes its moment. While it's becoming, it's a subject. Once it perishes, it becomes part of the world that others will feel. It becomes an object in their experience. But not just an object, a subject that once chose. A subject that once chose, now carried forward in memory and relation. So, what in the heck is the big takeaway from these three final sections of Mesle's text? Well, here you go. That reality is alive with process and possibility. That God is not the one who controls, but the one who calls. That freedom is real, even if partial. That each moment matters. And that philosophy is not just about finding truths, but about becoming truer ourselves. Whitehead doesn't just offer a new metaphysics. He offers a new way of being in the world, one that is humble, participatory, and very open to the future. So I just want to restate that philosophy is not just about finding truths, but about becoming truer ourselves. And we will close the last lecture of the course with that. And I hope all of you, far beyond this course, continue reading philosophy, continue reading ethics, maybe even process philosophy. But if not process, that's okay. There are so many other different ways of thinking. There's so many other different schools of philosophy throughout the history of philosophy and even in the present day that are well worth spending some time reading. So good luck on your philosophical journey.